I heard the beep. This is good. Welcome ready to Facebook Land, and welcome to you guys who are here live. This is good. This class, you may be here for yourself. You may be here because you care about somebody who actually has hypertension or high blood pressure. Wherever your reason for being here is, we're going to spend the next 29 minutes really making sure that you understand kind of how this situation actually develops and actually what you can do naturally to take care of it. Because what are we kind of told in our culture to do for high blood pressure? Drive it down chemically. Okay, now that may be helpful in the short term if you truly have a situation where you don't know what's going on, right? You don't know what's brought this on and you want to try to save somebody's life. But as a long-term consequence of those medications do have side effects. And actually your body in its wisdom, if it's trying to raise your blood pressure to move things along more so, if you drive it down chemically, a lot of times it'll actually start to raise your blood pressure even more, which is not a great thing. And you get into this ever-evolving negative cycle where the blood pressure goes up and now I take 2 medications or 3 medications to try and drive it down. When in fact, there's so many things you can do that actually will help you take care of it naturally. So we're going to show you talk about chiropractic and the chiropractic lifestyle. So when I start this class, I want to make sure that you understand that our patients tend to think and act differently than the average patient. So when you're here tonight, I know you guys actually believe these things, like the power that made the body heals the body, right? This is something I require every day. If this wasn't true, I'd be out of a job, right? You actually bring this doctor inside of you that's this inborn ability to be healthy, that's given for much higher power than me. All any doctor really can do, and especially chiropractic, is remove the interferences that block the normal healing process. Number 2 is, most of our patients tend to think if I can do something naturally as opposed to artificially from the outside, to restore and preserve health, these things tend to be better, cheaper, and have very few side effects, right? Like, what's the side effects of any medication that you take? If you take high blood pressure medication, what typically, you know what can happen from that? People sometimes feel like they feel like kind of woozy sometimes. If they miss it, they get these various other side effects and so forth. The benefits of losing weight, for example, are what? My joints feel better. I'm stronger. I have more alerts, right? These are really pleasant side effects. Number 3 is natural approaches take initiative and work, and you're not afraid to do a little work. That's the important one. It's very easy to get a prescription and say, Doc, I need to take 2 of these in the morning and 2 at night. That's easy. Hard work is getting up and moving or eating differently than I have all my entire life. They do take some work. And lastly, what's really important you understand is that you get to choose your approach based upon your values. Now, this is something I can't give you. Your values are things that you bring to us. What I hope I can do is help you aspire to the greatest values you can possibly ever have, right? So if your values are, I'd like to be a person who actually lives as naturally as I can, that I can do the things I want to both now and in, say, 40 years. These are all great things. But that means the choices you make today and the next day actually have a big role in that, what that's going to be. You don't want to end up in a place you didn't want to be because there was something you could have done, but you didn't either know it or you didn't do it, right? And so often, it's not so much the knowing thing. A lot of stuff I'm going to teach you today, you could actually have just found if you'd gone to the internet and looked for it. I'm going to try to condense it so you don't have to do all that work. And number 2 is show you the pathway back to it. But at some point, you have to make sure you understand that your values. Somebody once said, I can show a person your values if you give you 2 things. Give me your cell phone and your calendar, and they give me your pocketbook or your wallet, your receipts, right? I can tell where you're spending your time and money, and I know what your values are. So if your values are, I want to be healthy and natural, you may have to take some time from something that you say I currently value, which is 2 hours of TV every evening, and allocate maybe a half hour of that to walking or going to the gym. Or I may have to allocate the 5 minutes in the drive-through lane for 30 minutes of cooking at home. But the return is going to be I get my health back too, which is kind of cool, okay? So truth and hope, hypertension doesn't just show up. There's always a cause for it. Now we call these things, sometimes doctors will say this person has primary hypertension. We don't know what caused it. The other ones that are like secondary hypertension would be, say, let's say I have kidney issues that led to having hypertension. Okay, so the diagnosis was for kidney problems first and hypertension came result. But the reality is it's actually how you care for yourself that many times causes that. It's a situation where the body is not properly regulating itself. It's not actually keeping blood pressure in a normal range, but it's shooting higher for a reason. And then lastly, if we can give your body proper building blocks and regulation to restore your health, that would be a nice thing, right? Everything that you consume, right, in food is either going to be one of 2 things for your body. It's either fuel to burn or parts to make you up from, right? And then the same thing is true of exercise. Like when you exercise, you're either building primarily endurance or strength, right? And when it comes to your nervous system does several things for you. It does movement, it does sensory things, it does things for your organs. We have to make sure that we restore things to their proper balance. That's really what it comes down to. Life is a balancing game, isn't it, right? Too much of anything can be a poison. Too little of anything can be a deficiency, for sure, okay? So what is high blood pressure? Well, when a doctor takes your blood pressure, we're measuring the internal force of blood against your artery walls in circulation, and it's measured in terms of millimeters of mercury. So when you say, my doctor said my blood pressure was 120/80, the classic good values for things, right? What they're telling you is that this little dial showed that when he put this around your arm, and he actually had, I should show everybody can see this in Facebook land. Here's the sphygmometer. Here's the stethoscope. We actually do this sometimes in our office. Those numbers are measuring the pressure of your blood pressure against your arterial wall. So this dial face can actually go as high as 300. That'd be kind of scary if I actually saw that over there. Wow, that'd be okay. I'd say we need to talk about something. Are you thinking about elections all the time or something like that, right? But there it is. And so when the doctor actually has his stethoscope against there, this thing constricts and stops the blood flow. And then as the dial comes down, he starts to hear the first thing, which is your systolic blood pressure. That is this one here. So that number is actually the heart. When the heart's beating at its maximum pressure like that, that's what you measure there. And so ideally in a healthy person, you see either at 120 or lower than that. Now it can be too low, right? There are people that sometimes if a person's bleeding out, they take their blood pressure and it's like 40/10. That's not good. But for this purposes, we're going to talk about normal things for now. And so that's when you hear the heart beating. And then with a resting heart, in other words, between beats, that's called your diastolic value. And so you'll hear the heart beating all the way down until you reach this lower number. And so let's say if we had a neural situation where it came to 80 and they went below that, all of a sudden the sound disappears. So that means that now you've reached static equilibrium between the bracelet that's around your arm and those things there. And so we like to see that thing be actually less than 80 millimeters of mercury too. Now they divide these categories that if your blood pressure is in 120 to 139, or your lower number is actually 80 to 89, you're called pre-hypertensive, meaning you're at a stage where we're getting to a zone that's not really going to be good for you if this continues upward trend. And then, of course, if we cross over those thresholds where now it's over 140 or 90, then we have truly a situation where if it's that way all the time, that we have truly a case of hypertension or high blood pressure. Now, what I should tell you is, it'd be ideal before they would ever diagnose you with that you would actually have this done in a low stress situation, like maybe at home. Because there is such a thing as called white coat anxiety. Who's ever heard of that before? Just because you're going to the doctor, they might find something, right? I'm nervous about that. I'm in this environment. I'm sitting here in a gown with somebody I don't even know, right? That kind of stuff. And that can drive your pulse rate and your blood pressure up. So, a lot of times the blood pressure that they take in a doctor's office is going to be higher than what this. So I would say, consider maybe going to one of those places they have at, say, the grocery stores or wherever like that, as long as it's calibrated well. Or go someplace that you know and trust, and there you go, okay? Why is high blood pressure a problem? If you have it, it actually contributes to almost 70% of first heart attacks. Isn't that amazing? It's maybe not the only factor, but definitely plays a role in that. And 77% of actually the first strokes people have. And if people have chronic heart failure, 75% of the time they actually had high blood pressure preceding that. So these are some of the most common killers in our culture, right? And we don't want to have that going on. And so hypertension is a very real thing. That's for the first things. These are like the last things, okay? If you have high blood pressure, you're 4 times more likely to die from a stroke and 3 times more likely to die from heart disease. So these are odds you don't want to have. You want to have these odds in your favor is what I'm saying. Walking around with high blood pressure that's going untaken care of, unheeded, and unaddressed is really setting yourself up to actually have some significant issues. And these things are taking a lot of lives. Last I checked, about 750,000 Americans per year, 750,000 are dying from heart-related disorders, and a vast majority of them are coming from our lifestyle. So we need to make sure we actually address this stuff and not have that be a thing that we are living with for sure. So the toll on the high blood pressure in the United States is we lose about somewhere around 70 million Americans per year. They actually have 1 in 3 have high blood pressure. About half of them have it under control, which means they either don't know they have it or they know they have it and they're doing absolutely nothing about it. Okay? So keep that in mind. It's a lot of people, 35 to 40 million people. Okay? Annual costs associated with treating high blood pressure are 51 billion. I'm sure it's more than that by now. And then lastly, it contributes to somewhere around 1,000 deaths per day. Imagine that? Like that's just a lot. If you think about 365,000 deaths per year from this, that's roughly the population of Lincoln plus some, dying every year from things just related to this one illness. Okay? So it's not small, and it's actually having high instances of what we call morbidity and mortality both. Okay? Well, sometimes I hear this from people say, well, high blood pressure must run in my family. Well, it's kind of a funny thing. You may actually have a genetic predisposition to be a Star Trek fan. Some people grow up in families, right? There's this whole thing we talk about. There's nature and nurture. Okay? So no matter what your family's genes are like, how you care for them matters way more. There's a whole field of developing research now on something called epigenetics. What it basically means is this, and I'll just give you the short version of it. You have approximately about 3 to 4 million genes in your body that actually are these pairs that actually produce certain effects in your body. So some are there for, say, muscle building, and some are there for eye reproduction, and some are there for whatever. What they've learned is the amount of information your body carries in your genes would be like if you took this, show what they said. Let's take a phone book. There actually used to be these things we used to print that actually had these addresses in them that you don't have anymore, right? But let's say it was actually printed like with 12-point font or so. And we took phone books and stacked them in a room, okay, from floor to ceiling in the Empire State Building. And then we did that in every room on every floor to the top of the building. That's how much genetic information a single cell in your body carries. You are truly fearfully and wonderfully made. That's an amazing amount of information. But my question to you is, do you think you could read all those books at the same time? And the answer, of course, is no. Well, your body doesn't read all that genetic information either. It always goes to the phone books that it needs for certain situations. So, for example, I say, Rachel, we're going to go to the gym tomorrow. We're going to do some power cleans and some squats and some bench presses. And next day, Rachel's like, oh my gosh, I am so sore. I feel like I just run over by a truck. What's happening is her body's turning on now the genes that actually have to do with muscle repair, and Rachel's going to come back stronger. Okay? Let's say I say, hey, Marcel, we're going to watch a scary movie. And Marcel's watching, all of a sudden she's like, like this, and she goes into fight or flight. Okay? Well, there's a response that happens in your body that starts to turn certain things off that you don't need for the event that maybe you were going to be attacked by a tiger, but you're not really. The scary thing is to me is that, this is something why I don't want to see people being stressed, because your body cannot discern between a real threat and an actual threat. So if you're always watching scary things in the news and always thinking about the worst possible scenarios, what your body's doing is it's in fight or flight most of the day, and yet your body's not being attacked, but you're turning your immune system down, and all sorts of really bad things that go with that. You're actually starting to increase your clotting factors too, because when your body's getting ready to bleed out, if you were actually to be attacked by a tiger, you don't want to actually bleed out. Your clotting factors go up. Well, guess what? If your clotting factors are going up but you're not really threatened, what could be a problem with that? If I threw a clot to, say, my brain or my lung or my leg, I could lose those body parts. I could lose my life from those things. Okay? So how you take care of your genes is far more important than actually the genes you got. I'm not saying that I actually do think there are some people who actually have a tendency towards high blood pressure. Don't get me wrong on that, guys. I think genes are very real that way. But how that person cares for their genes, they will have to be very particular about how they care for themselves. And I've actually seen people who almost had their destiny written that, you know what, everybody in my family, if you're a male, you have a heart attack by the time you're 50. That's just the way it was. When they changed their lifestyle from how their parents lived to the way they wanted to live their lives, they made it way past 50, and they have still not had heart attacks because they changed how they cared for their genes, not what their genes were. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So the blood pressure analogy with the balloon. How can pressure increase in your artery system? Well, one way is if you actually put more blood pressure on the inside. So if you actually have something that's actually forcing and your heart's beating really hard and pushing things through, just like if you actually blew up a balloon. When a balloon is actually flat, like it's like we had this one we pulled out of a bag, there's no pressure. It's actually equal with the pressure in the room. But if I take it and blow into it, and I actually have to pinch it off, what's the pressure inside like? There's more, right? So one way you can actually raise your blood pressure is actually do things that make your blood pressure, your blood and the internal contents expand out more. But you could also take a normal balloon or something like this, or something that's relatively low, and squeeze it from the outside, couldn't you? Right? I can make the pressure go up not by blowing into it, but by taking pressure from the outside and squeezing it too. So when I talk to you about these different things that happen to us physiologically, it's got to be one of these two scenarios. Either something's happening to the internal constitution of my artery, or something's happening from the outside of my system crushing down on it like that. Okay? So there's only two ways we have it there. So here are the risk factors and behaviors for high blood pressure, and we're going to talk about solutions. Now, what's interesting is when I talk about these solutions, guys, I don't expect you're going to get everything tonight. In fact, I won't give you everything tonight because I cannot possibly give you like a 21-day meal plan tonight. But we actually have classes that will address these things. In fact, we have some classes coming up later this year that will talk about these. But for the purpose of tonight, risk factors would be having pre-hypertension. So I'm doing things, let's say a high sodium diet. Hey, thank you for bringing those out there. This is actually one of our solutions for tonight. This is great. Pomegranate juice, okay? So if apple juice is the Budweiser of juices, pomegranate is the Guinness. It is very, very thick, full of good stuff there. We need one more for Rachel if you want it. Okay, all right, good. So let's say I'm doing lots of things that actually raise my blood pressure prematurely. That's not good. Having natural diabetes, what does that mean? Well, if you actually have lots of sugar in your blood, your body has to dilute that or it's going to become deposited in your tissues. And what does it do? It rushes water into your bloodstream, okay? If I take the same amount of space, all the same arteries are the same, but I force more water into it, what happens? Just like blow it into a balloon. You're raising your blood pressure. It's called osmotic pressure. It's going up there. So by dropping my blood sugar down to normal ranges, that's good. Smoking tobacco. Nicotine is a vasoconstrictor, okay? What does constriction mean? It's getting narrower, right? So there we have this situation where it's clumping down in there. Inadequate exercise. You know that when you exercise, lots of great things happen, guys. Multiple things happen there. So when you exercise, excuse me, first of all, you force your heart rate up, don't you, right? And then your heart becomes more strong and is able to beat more efficiently. So with every beat, it pushes more blood through. So when your heart beats less often, guess what happens to your blood pressure typically? It goes down. Also, when you force your blood through at that level like this, do you know your arteries become more elastic? People exercise when your heart beats with every beat. your arteries can expand and contract more. And guess what happens? If you can expand and take the pressure off from the inside, what happens? Blood pressure goes down as well too. Okay, so obesity. Okay, obviously the more miles of tissue we have to pump blood through, the harder it is for your heart. They actually say for every excess pound of body fat you carry that you don't need, your heart, or excuse me, you have actually 1 extra mile of blood vessels, little capillaries to feed that thing. So if you're carrying 50 pounds too much weight, that's a lot of body mass to be pushing it through, right? Having a diet that's really high in sodium and low in potassium. Sodium is a fantastic way to increase the osmotic pressure in your system, but potassium actually helps relax it. Okay? And then lastly, we actually have too much alcohol. If you're drinking more than 1 drink per day, you're going to have a tendency to actually have an increased blood pressure. Now, on the right-hand side, I put the column for changes on these things. So if I have pre-hypertension, I need to address that, prevent it in the first place, but if it shows up, I need to address things. Don't wait until you're in that zone of like 140/90 and say, oh my gosh, I'm in this zone, please help me now. Please do address it if you are there. But I'm saying if you see that trend creeping up there, say, what am I doing that actually would cause us to go up? Same thing is true of diabetes, right? Number 3, if you're smoking tobacco, guys, please quit, okay? I would say, like I said, nicotine is a vasoconstrictor. It's also a stimulant, right? And stimulants tend to raise our blood pressure. So there's lots of programs out there. I've heard people who've succeeded with hypnosis. There's other programs that actually have cessation programs where they go and actually talk about things. Some people have weaned off where they just went cold turkey. Believe it or not, I almost hate to bring this up there, but the most successful, I think Marcel, I may have told you this, the most successful program they've ever seen for getting men to quit smoking was they showed that actually when you smoke, it actually is also to erectile dysfunction. And so they have all these packages of cigarettes that say, warning, this can cause emphysema and lung cancer. And they said the thinking is that, well, that would happen 30 years from now, but having ED could actually be a problem tomorrow night or something like that. As they said, it's very funny, but that's actually what some states have found. Okay? Inadequate exercise, guess what? We need to start moving, guys. And if you say, oh, I've got to go to a gym and get a membership and working out an hour a day, no. Even moving 3 times a week for 30 minutes can actually change your blood pressure and your risk profile. 5 times a week for 30 minutes is the ideal range to be in, okay? They have shown when you exercise 5 times a week for 30 minutes that you get some massive changes in your blood pressure, but also your immune system, your body mass. I mean, there's just, what else is there? There's just, I mean, it's just, I can't tell you how much there. They even showed during COVID, people exercised 150 minutes a week, 5 times a week for 30 minutes. They had way less incidence of even getting COVID. Secondly, they were way less likely to go to the hospital. And lastly, they were less likely, if they went to the hospital, they were way less likely to die. Like it just dropped off precipitously. So get out and move, guys, any way you can. Please don't, I don't hate to see people limit themselves and say, well, I can't walk because of a certain situation. Well, let's find a way to help you swim or whatever like that. In regards to having low sodium, guys, almost any processed food is going to have higher sodium content. You look at a package of chips versus, say, an apple. What's the difference in sodium content? Astronomical difference, right? Nature does not put in excess sodium, man does, for sure, okay? And then lastly, drink lots of water, guys. Certainly having a drink now and then is okay, but let's have it be an event, not a lifestyle, right? Water should be a lifestyle. You should drink, in our hydration class, we talk about this. At a minimum, if you're a totally sedentary person, you should drink about half your body weight in ounces per day. So for easy math, let's say I'm a 200-pound male, I should drink 100 ounces of water per day. And more than that if I'm actually exercising or it's a hot summer day. And if I'm actually drinking caffeine, like coffee, I'm actually using from a diuretic. It makes as we say, coffee's only rented for a while. You have to give it back, right? Drink more water than 2. And make sure you just really watch the amount of drinking that you actually do there too in terms of alcohol, okay? So chiropractic for hypertension. This is one of the things we're going to talk about, guys, because your nervous system is what's controlling these things. It's controlling your constriction of your arteries. It's controlling how often your heart beats and how strong it beats and so forth. Well, believe it or not, most people think of chiropractic as being helpful for back pain, neck pain, headaches. It's kind of the niche we actually have. And actually, when I left Florida 24 years ago, if you can imagine this, it was getting to the point where people wouldn't say, do you have a chiropractor? They would say, who is your chiropractor? They were expecting you would have one. I came to Nebraska, we're kind of behind the times a little bit. And I was like, okay, so we're kind of going back in time here. But now I'm hearing more and more people talk about Generation Z, especially. What they're saying is, look, I see what healthcare costs are going to. They're escalating astronomically. Chiropractic is so cost effective. Number 2, they've seen their parents aging and they don't want to actually have those same things too. And they say, I don't want to actually go through that. I want to be naturally focused. Well, the cool thing is that chiropractic can actually alleviate a myriad of other disorders. We're not treating these things. Don't hear me say that we're treating hypertension. What I'm saying is that chiropractic care, along with the lifestyle, can do amazing things to keep your blood pressure in a safe, normal range. Okay? So here's a study that was done. Okay, this is actually done in the journal Hypertension. It was actually done at the University of Chicago at their hypertension clinic, and it's a very prestigious one. This is one of the best places if you're going to go for the full-on analysis of why do I have high blood pressure, how can I take care of this thing. They did a study there. What they did was they took patients, 50 of them, who actually had stage 1 hypertension. This is a primary hypertension. They were not taking medication for it. If they were taking it, they actually had to be off of it for like 30 days before they would do it. Okay, so they took them as they were. Let's see what your blood pressure is. And of them, about a little over 2/3 were male, 1/3 were female. They gave them 8 weeks of care. What they did was they took x-rays, they provided care, and this was care for a specific part of the nervous system, which is C1, the atlas vertebra, okay? And they would check them, and they would take care of them, and then make sure that they stayed in alignment every week. I think it was, or maybe twice a week there. And they would take care of them, they started going back out of alignment. The control group did get care, but it was a sham adjustment, meaning the doctor came in the room, so these people are chiropractic newbies, they have no idea what chiropractic is. They would come and maybe touch their skin, or do something like this. So there was at least an intervention, and the person would think this. What this does, what are they trying to do when they do this? Do you know? Yeah, make sure it's a placebo effect. Does my blood pressure just go down because there's a doctor in the room? Thank goodness you're here. You're going to save me, right? And so I just naturally relax and my blood pressure goes down. They want to make sure that's not the case. So one got actual care. The actual group got a sham adjustment. Now, here's what they found out was that after they took care of these people and those who received chiropractic care, the average person's blood pressure, the top number dropped 17 points. Okay? The lower number, the blood pressure at rest, dropped 10 points. Okay? And they said that this result was similar to if those people were taking 2 drugs together in the same way for hypertension. Is that pretty cool? Right? So now the question becomes, how did this happen? Right? So the people got the sham adjustment, nothing happened. No change. Okay? So it's not the doctor walking in the room, it's actually the care they provided. Here's what so there it is. That just shows again the upper and lower numbers there. Now, this is C1, the atlas vertebra, which is right next to the brainstem, where a lot of important neurology that has to do with alertness, fight or flight. Also, who's ever heard of the vagus nerve? You guys heard of the vagus nerve? Number 10, yeah, there's a whole thing called vasovagal theory now. That is the parasympathetic one, which has to do with rest and digestion. If that one is off, it becomes less tonal, and so the ones that control fight or flight become more dominant, and therefore you start to have higher blood pressure. What they said was, those patients that went chiropractic care and actually had that top C1 vertebra adjusted, what they said was that because of that misalignment, it tends to, if it is misaligned, it restricts blood flow to the brainstem, and therefore you raise it, jack it up from hypertension because your body's going into fight or flight. So if I just C1 vertebra, which restores normal blood flow to that part of my brainstem, guess what? My body starts to do more normal things, and therefore my blood pressure goes down. Isn't that neat? I mean, 17 points, guys, is pretty darn cool. That would be the equivalent of losing a lot of weight and major changes in diet too. Does it mean that is chiropractic care a replacement for a good diet? Absolutely not. I want you to be as healthy as possible. Is chiropractic care a replacement for exercise? No. Is chiropractic care a replacement for stress management? It is absolutely not. You need to learn how to control the things. But what I'm saying is, what if a person is doing all those things and they still notice that, hey, my blood pressure is high? There's probably something else going on there too, right? In fact, I would be checked for subluxation regardless of symptoms or whatever, because that's where it all starts, right? This is where your body controls, regulates, and harmonizes all their function. Any diet you have, any movement you make, any stress reduction plan you go will be better when your nervous system can talk to those tissues normally, right? It's like having the dial turned down to 70% versus at 100%. Make sure it's at 100% so you can be truly healthy, okay? So subluxations, they're areas where the spine is misaligned or restricted, and they're causing interference to the nervous system. This can be commonly triggered by the 3 types of stress. There's physical stress. I fell down the stairs. I slept wrong on my pillow last night. I was on my cell phone for 3 hours last night like this on my laptop, right? FaceTiming the grandkids, right? That kind of stuff. Chemical stress can happen too. So if you watch this, guys, we know that we live in one of the most toxic times that there's ever been. You look at the amount of stuff you get through the air, through the water, and through your food, and especially your cosmetics too, that kind of stuff. We have classes, all 3 in a row here to cover those things. Next week on Tuesday, we're going to talk about ways to detox your body using plant material. Really cool stuff. There's going to be a 7-day, a 14-day, and a 28-day plan you'll be offered to do those things. Then in the month of March, we have somebody come to talk about how to clean your house and your car and various things, and things that are not toxic to your system. Okay. And then in April, we have a class where somebody's going to come and talk about how not to toxify yourself through your cleansers and your moisturizers. And there's going to be lots of fun stuff there. All those classes, we intend to actually have some swag for you to take home with you to actually try these things. Okay. That's for the people who come live. Note to self, Facebookers, come do these things live. It'd be great. And then, of course, the emotional factors. Think about this, guys. If you ever get a phone call and somebody says, "Are you sitting down?" What do you know, Marcel? Is this good news? This is bad news. Why do we sit down? Because you can have such a drop in your blood pressure, you could actually faint and fall to the floor, right? That's how sensitive our nervous system and our blood pressure are. So Again, a person who's living with all kinds of stress. Let's say I'm hunched over my desk all day, constricting my heart. I'm eating foods that are highly processed with lots of bad fats and sodium. And I have a job I can't stand. I have neighbors. The saying goes, we're spending money to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't even like, right? And so that lifestyle will absolutely drive your blood pressure up either quickly or slowly. We have to start addressing those things. And so chiropractors want to make sure we address those things and not just simply treat symptoms. We address subluxations with gentle and safe adjustments called chiropractic adjustments. And so that lets us get the pressure off your nerves so that you more effectively process the stress of life. Have you noticed that sometimes in chiropractic care, nothing in your life has really changed yet, but you're a different person, and so you handle it better? Right? We will build better people from the inside out. That's how we do it. Okay? And the research on hypertension, this is really cool. They showed that chiropractic adjustments to lower blood pressure as quickly as 10 minutes following adjustment. This actually happened when this study came out. I think this was back in the 90s. I was practicing in Florida. We had a lady who consistently came in with blood pressure about 180 over 120. She just chronically ran it high, and she was a very skinny person, not carrying lots of body weight, right? So we actually did this. We adjusted her. And the most common area that we found misaligned in her, at least when I was caring for her, was her lower thoracic spine, which goes to your adrenal glands and your kidneys, which has a lot to do with regulating your sodium. I adjusted her. We let her go into a room and lie down for 10 minutes. I came in to measure blood pressure. It was actually 140 over 90. Isn't that amazing? It literally dropped like 40 points on the top part and actually dropped like 30 points on the bottom. It was just amazing. And so we have really seen this happen in real practice, guys. And so research suggests that chiropractic adjustments also to the upper mid back, with the nerves that go to your heart. That's right through here, right below your neck. There's a thing called the cardiac plexus that actually goes to your heart, and it regulates the heartbeat strength and also the constriction of the arteries in your heart. So if you're under high stress with subluxation, your heart's beating really hard and things like this, and those carotid arteries get really clamped down on. You're cruising for a bruising at that point. That's not going to be good if really that ends there. Okay, so the chiropractic lifestyle, guys, this should not surprise you. It encompasses more than the chiropractic adjustment. It focuses on creating wellness through a bunch of things that promote health, known as the chiropractic lifestyle. And once again, no surprise here. If you could live this way, guys, these lifestyle factors have been proven to prevent hypertension or reduce it once you have it. Nutritious diet, not smoking, not holding grudges, right? One of my friends, who was here for Brad Kelly? My friend who, yeah, great. Kelly was here for Brad Kelly. How cool is that? He's actually back in town. I'm going to have lunch with him Thursday night, and he's going to be speaking to a bunch of chiropractic friends of mine in about 2 months. Do you remember his thing where he talked about haterade? Okay? When you actually have a grudge, you're holding onto something that's called haterade, and you're gonna grind it out. I don't like this person because what they did to me, and sometimes that it's been 40 years since it happened. Sometimes that person's actually died, and you're still holding on to this thing. How can God give you something new if you're holding on that tightly? He says you have to let it go, right? We call it closed-fisted living versus open-handed living. When you let things go, you can receive more, right? Which is a beautiful thing. Okay. Managing stress well, guys, there's lots of things. One of the things we taught about in our class on this is actually doing what's called box breathing. Who's ever heard of that before? Do you know what that is, Rachel? So basically, if you find yourself in a situation where you're highly stressed, okay, you're in traffic, you have all these, people honking and just, it's not moving very well. I-25, Roger, at 5 o'clock. Does that help you? Okay. What you want to do is you want to breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. Take a nice long deep breath. Hold it for 4 seconds. Breathe out through your mouth. 4 seconds, and then wait 4 seconds. Do that about 10 times in a row. You actually will reset your nervous system. If you took your blood pressure before and after, you'd see the pressure in many cases going down. Beautiful thing to do. And of course, just reinterpreting things. Like, choose to be fascinated, not frustrated. Okay? Instead of saying, why aren't these clowns driving on this I-25, Roger, you can say, I've never seen this many people on the road. We must be setting a record here. This is fantastic, right? Okay. How about sense of humor, guys? This is one I fall back on often. I like to tell jokes. I like dad jokes. I'm sorry if you've been subjected to those. I apologize for that. A lot of fun. In fact, my favorite one I got today was, what's the difference? Oh goodness, I have to read my phone to tell it to you. Something goes like this though. What's the difference between the people in Dubai versus Abu Dhabi when it comes to the Flintstones? The Flintstones are not appreciated in Dubai, but they are in Abu Dhabi. Isn't that funny? I thought it was pretty funny. Owning a pet. Who's ever seen this with therapy dogs, right? For emotional stress. Have you guys noticed that actually if you have a pet, doesn't everybody in the room just kind of turn to it almost like a little toddler came in the room, right? You have a corgi, right? You know what it's all about? Yeah. So petting a dog, right? These animals ask so little of us, right? Feed me, put a shelter over me, I'm here for you, right? Let's go for a walk now and then. They're just unconditional love. It's a great thing. If you don't like cats, like I don't, well, don't get one of those, but there you go, right? No, sorry. Okay. How about supportive relationships, right? Have you ever known people who primarily their family is about upholding each other, saying kind things, loving, right, serving, versus the competitive thing. Sadly, it seems like every family has one of those people that if you invite them to the holiday gathering, everybody's like, oh boy, I know religion or politics is going to come up, and it's going to be a fun night tonight, kind of thing. So if you can find mostly people who are VIPs, very inspiring people, you can afford to have some VDPs, very draining people. But if your life is mostly VDPs, I feel sorry for you, right? We need to help you change those ratios and get you around some people there. Lastly, maintaining optimal body weight. There's things I would say it's more important than the weight is body composition, right? Bodybuilders, if you took them just based on their body weight alone, they would actually be typically high BMI. What's their body fat? Like 5%, right? That's actually a very healthy thing. They're burning lots of calories. And spiritual practices too. There's actually some amazing things that they've seen about people who actually have a practice of acknowledging a higher power, okay, for sure. There's even been studies that have done on people who are in hospitals who are actually not doing well, who are being prayed for by people. They didn't know who was being prayed for, nor did the physicians, and the people who were being prayed for actually did better, right? So there's really something to this, guys, that I can distinguish between your body and your spirit, but should I separate your body and spirit? That's a bad thing, right? That's death. So what we're saying is we're trying to make you a more connected person so that what you believe and what you actually do and what you experience are all the same thing. That's really important. And always become very fractionalized people, okay? So we have a copy that actually summarizes everything I just shared with you tonight. I will give that copy to you. I apologize I don't have it here tonight, but I hope you took some good notes. And you do have the copy there of those chiropractic studies that talk about getting adjusted and actually having the nervous system work better so that your blood pressure is a more normal range there too. So get that copy and share it with friends because there are probably people. How many people here know somebody with high blood pressure? Yes. What are they doing for it? Are they doing anything that I showed you here? Hopefully some of it, right? But are they doing everything on the list? Probably not. And so I would say if there's anything on that list that you say, I really should be doing those things, absolutely. And I would say start with the one that you know is probably the biggest. Whatever I said that made you wince a little bit, that's probably the one, right? Start there first and then work your way down the list, okay? Look for this, and there's citations in there that point you to the research there. And then, like I said, share with coworkers and friends. I will give you as many as you need when you come back next time. Please take those. And tonight we do have, I want to share one other article with you. We actually had an article from the Journal of Cardiology or Circulation from about 10 years ago. What they showed was if you drink pomegranate juice, around 6 to 8 ounces per day for a year, it is so rich in antioxidants that it actually does two things. One is that it tends to scour the things that are deposited on your arteries off. I wish I had. Do you have that article from?
I do. I'll get it for next.
Let me. No. Do the one on pomegranate juice? No, it's in the back there. But basically, what they did is they went to the people's carotid arteries and they measured them at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months in after a year of doing it. The amount of blockage went down from like 20, and then went down 30, and went down 40%. That's not the one. No. It's the full article. It's a 6-page article back there. Yeah. And so by the time you get to the end of the year, your arteries were 1/3 less blocked. Now, just pumping your blood through a larger area, would that lower your blood pressure? Absolutely, right? And the ones that lead to your brain, through your carotids, you definitely do not want those things blocked. That's not what you want to have blocked. That's going to lead to strokes. But they also showed that when they measured blood pressure at the beginning of the study, and when people drink pomegranate juice daily for a year, the average blood pressure drops 21%. Now, if I'm floating around, say, 135, so 1/10 of 135 is 13 points. So 20% would be 26 points. I'm now in normal range. Isn't that amazing? Just because I drink pomegranate juice. Now, be careful if you have to watch your blood sugars. Juices typically have a high sugar content, but it's just an absolutely amazing thing you can drink to actually improve your body's health too. Okay? This is it right there. Yep. What they said was the average person lost their blood pressure went down 21 points. At 3 months, their blockage was 13% less. At 6 months, it was 22% less. At 9 months, it was 26% less. And at 12 months, it was 35% less. So pretty darn cool. That's one simple thing you do. Again, but does doing it one day work? Does doing it 1 year, 1 week work? No, but doing it for a year, that's what you can expect. Pretty cool, right? So guys, with that said, I hope that was empowering to you and also encouraging to you. Hopefully we found either lit a fire inside of you or lit a fire under you, something, right? To help you be able to turn this around, because the more positive choices that you make starting today will have a ripple effect. First of all, in your own life, right? I want to make sure that you guys can live the highest quality of life for as many years as God gives you. And number two, for those people whom you care about, you can now be an ambassador for good health, right? None of the stuff here has anything, you don't have to have a medical degree to share this with people, right? You just have to have information based on good science. And of course, people have to have the reason that they want to make a change too. In 32 years of being in practice, The biggest thing for me is not the what or the how. Probably most of those things I shared with you today, you would actually say that makes sense. That just kind of makes common sense. I know that eating processed food is not good, that being sedentary is not good. But what would get you to go from having a sedentary lifestyle, eating processed foods, is not so much the how, it's the why, right? Why would you want to do it? When you keep your why in front of you, like you post on your mirror every day, like I'm eating for myself and my grandkids, or so I can be climbing Mount Kilimanjaro when I'm 80, or so I can actually, do whatever it is. I want to be able to at least get on the floor and play with my grandkids and get up again. Whatever your why is, you're making choices for that. And the why is what drives you. It'll make you do things even when you don't want to, right? At the time when you come to that decision, do I stay in bed or get up and exercise? Do I get off this sofa and actually go for a walk or actually click through the channels one more time, right? Do I go through the drive-through or go home and make something more healthy? What makes the difference is your why. Your why was what will get you there too. So I thank you guys for being here tonight. Please share that with people. And please, if this makes sense to you, please come to our class tomorrow, or sorry, not tomorrow, but next Tuesday, which will be on how to detoxify things in your body that may be causing you to have high blood pressure as well too, getting it out of your system. And there'll be some ways to do that in a very, very tangible way for 7, 14, or 28 days. And I thank you for being here.